So this is going to be an engine room tour of Explorer. We currently can't take visitors into the engine room, so I'm filming this video to show visitors. Explorer was built in 1955 by Alexander Hall in Aberdeen, and she worked until 1984. She's an oil-fired triple expansion, steam-engined trawler. She worked all the days as a research vessel. Just a bit of an overview outside, and then we'll go down into the engine room. There are a couple of volunteers working today, but it's fairly quiet. So we'll go up the gangway. Right, we'll go up the walkway.
So we did you bring that here?
Right, climb aboard. We'll go along the main starboard corridor. And into the engine room. There is a diesel generator running. From experience, the phone deals with the sound from that okay, so I'll just speak clearly and you should be able to hear what I'm saying. I'll put subtitles up if it's too bad, but it should be okay. Access into the engine room is by this ladder here, so I'm going to pause as I climb down the ladder. So at the bottom of the ladder, into the top half of the engine room, that's the top of the triple expansion steam engine. 1,000 indicated horsepower. Get the ship through the sea at a speed of about 12 knots. It's the reversing engine on this side. So this whole upper part of the engine room is catwalks and open grates. So if you're not a fan of walking around at height, this isn't the place for you. Right, we'll have a look at some of the power generation first. I'll pause as I go down the ladder. Right, these are the two main generators that Explorer would have used when she was at sea, and they're controlled through this panel here. We'll come back to that panel in a second. Here's the second one, Ruston Railway locomotive engines. These were 80 kilowatt DC generators, and Explorer would use one or both of these while she was at sea, and it would come through this panel here. The two generators on this side of the engine room do not run. There is an original fitted generator on the other side of the engine room that does run. We'll have a look at that in a minute. When the original generator is running, this whole panel lights up like a Christmas tree, and there are exposed contact knife switches that become live at mains voltage. So if you don't know what you're doing with this panel, you could cause yourself a lot of harm. So again, more catwalks. This is actually the back of the boiler, and we'll go down and have a look at the boiler proper in a minute. The generator you can hear running is a modern AC set that was fitted about 10 years ago. That produces 8 kilowatts, and it is just about deals with what we can chuck it in. It's what we've got, so it's what we work with. So let's head a bit further forward. Down into the main engine room, down this ladder here. I'll pause again. So that's the original generator just here. That's running away just nicely. And the main generator. So the centerpiece of this ship, and the reason she's still here, the triple expansion steam engine. I can't get all of it into shot at once, so I'm just going to slowly pan around all of it. The boiler hasn't been put into steam since 1984, so the engine hasn't turned since then. We probably could get it turning if we tried hard enough. At the moment, the prop shaft and the seal out the back of the ship is not leaking. If we turn the engine, however, there's a risk that it could start leaking, so we won't turn the engine. Let's go up here and have a look at some of the pumps. there's a number of pumps here. Just watching where I'm stepping so I'm not tripping over anything. There are things everywhere trying to trip me up in this room. There you go, that's some information on that pump. Made in Glasgow in 1955. Oh, it's not focusing, never mind. Anyway. More pumps. That was a general service pump. There you go. These are the control boxes for the pump. So that's the general service pump. That is how you turn on that pump. Each pump has its own corresponding panel. There's switches on the side. We'll go into the boiler room, so we'll head back along this forward end of the engine. There's a steam engine again. Wander down here. So down here, this on the right hand side here, that's one of the fuel tanks. That's where we store the diesel that goes into the generator. When we want to use it, it gets pumped up to the header tank and we run from that tank. Both diesel generators run from that tank. The one that's running at the moment and the one over here on the port side of the engine room, it does still run. That's also a Ruston diesel engine, and that is a 24 kilowatt unit. That would have been the Harbour set when she was in service. Like I said, this one does run, and we run it 3 or 4 times a year. It's quite impressive when that runs. It's air start, so we have to run it to charge the compressor so we can start it. That's another diesel tank. We don't use that one. So we're currently in the boiler room. So I'm struggling to get everything in shot. Problem was filming on a phone. So, single-ended, triple furnace, oil-fired Scotch boilers. These haven't been put into steam since the 80s, so we can't do that again just now without looking at it, because this boiler will need a lot of work. The fuel oil that it runs on is heavy bunker oil, and when it's cold it's like treacle, so you can't bump it. That's the fuel pump there. So what the engineers would have done is started one of the boilers or one of the furnaces on diesel, which would have built up a little bit of steam, and they would have pumped steam through heating loops in the fuel tanks, which would have melted the fuel and allowed the engineers to switch over to fuel oil. There's a gauges pointing out some of the tanks, and then the tank tunnel is down there. Let's see if we can turn the light on. Oh, tell you what, let's do that. Let's do that. There you go, that's into the tank tunnel. Not for those that are claustrophobic. Like I said, fuel pump here, and as is with the way with ships, there's not a spare square centimetre of space that hasn't got something on it. There's a piece of equipment or a pipe or a wire. So the bridge would communicate with the engine room via the engine order telegraph. This one's a repeater. There was a main one in the main engine room that's long since gone. The engineer would take his reading and put the engine wherever it needed to be. If that didn't work, there was an intercom which is just on the other side of the boiler. We'll have a look at that in a minute. If that didn't work, you get shouted at down the speaking tube. So a few ways for the bridge to communicate with the engine room. Just going to pause for 1 second. Right. So a few pictures of this room when it was in service. Well, that's in the main engine room now. The engineer with the boilerman with his white coverall on. It would have been hellish down here. It would have been so hot with the boiler running and diesel generators running and the steam engine running. It would have been so noisy and hot down here. It would have been hard work. We'll go back into the main engine room. Back along this starboard side corridor. Bench grinder. Telephone for the bridge. There you go, it's in there, hiding in there. Tell you what, let's do this. And that. There we go. We'll head this way. That's a turning gear. Turns the main engine. Again, we won't turn it because the prop shaft isn't leaking. Air compressor. We charge that up when we run the DC generator, so we can run the DC generator. It fills those two bottoms up there. Now into the prop tunnel. So back at the steam engine comes into a propeller shaft which runs out the back of the boat beyond that bulkhead there. So that's where the seal is for the prop shaft. If we tried to turn the engine, that could start leaking and flood this compartment. We're aiming to get into dry dock in the next 12 months, and one of the jobs is to remove the propeller shaft and the propeller and plate over the hull. We're right down below the water at the moment. You can see the curvature of the hull on the starboard side there, and then on the port side. These are water tanks, there's one there. One over there, that would have been for the fresh water, for the showers and for sinks and for the toilets. They're empty at the moment. A lathe that's DC powered. We have an AC powered lathe in one of the workshops that runs off the AC generator. That was original DC lathe. Now this piece of equipment is quite interesting. It looks rather unassuming, but it's called a thrust block. What that does is it takes the force coming back through the propeller shaft and it transmits it into the hull of the ship. If the force went back into the engine, it would destroy it in about half an hour. This is effectively a series of bearings within a box, and that takes all the power and puts it into the hull. I'll do another little wander around and then I'll head out. That's about it for today. So this is that DC generator that runs, just sneak past these pipes. There you go, another Ruston locomotive engine, Ruston diesel engine. Lincoln. That's about an hour up the road from where I'm from originally. Explorer is currently in Leith. Right near Edinburgh. There is a Facebook page, SS Explorer. There's a few videos on YouTube. We do take tours around the ship, so I'll put a link in the description to Explorer's Facebook page and Explorer's website for those that want to book a tour. Right, let's head back this way.